guys. What you looking for? Did you find some worms? Geese, you see the goose there? They are not looking for worms. They are just eating grass. We have about 100 poultry currently. There. Turkeys. Come on out. This is the open air cage for the broody mama who has new babies. Hi, mama. Just have to hold the door open. A lot of the other birds will come in and clean up extra feed. What you doing, mama? Where's your babies? There they are. All right. So for ducks, I put food next to the pond. And the reason for that is that ducks can't wash their food down. Ducks can't wash their food down without water. So give these guys their food. There you go, guys. These are the baby turkeys that want to be on everything. You can see they've kind of crushed down the tomatoes a little bit. These guys are really good at eating grasshoppers. So once the garden is a little bit further advanced to where it is now, about knee high, Paige takes them up to the front garden and they eat all the grasshoppers. They don't scratch like a chicken would, and they eat all the bugs. That would absolutely be terrorizing everything if we didn't have them. But Paige has to go up there with them. Yeah. As you can see, they fly quite well. They don't kill the garden up here, but they do kind of smush it. They're looking for bugs, they're looking for greens, and I don't mind because they come and they kind of snack on the Swiss chard a little bit. Where are you headed? Sometimes they try to fly onto us because we are the highest thing, but you can see they're just eating the Swiss chard right now, which is fun. Hi! This is my milkmaid this year, and our pig, what's a pig keeper? Our swine herder?
I have no idea. Pig pen person?
Pig pen person. We have grazed the goats and the sheep up in the front this year. It drives me crazy to water something and have it go to just needing mowed. I think I'm going to turn it into the rabbit pen though. I read an amazing article about a lady who grazes her rabbits. And I think what I'm going to do is hang the rabbit cages under the pine tree, Austrian pine, with a ramp down, and let them eat the front yard for me and bring them food from the garden. We can keep the ducklings in an open air pen so that they're not smothering at night, and the geese protect them. So as you can see, the top's not even covered on this thing. These are all birds we either hatched ourselves or they were free. We have about 40 birds up here. They're either khaki Campbells that we hatched out, or they're free ducklings that someone else hatched out and then decided they didn't want. Now what you'll see is this food had chunks in it. I do not give those formulated pellets to my ducks because they just melt. And then the duck can't retrieve it later. When you see, they're kind of frantic. They're hungry this morning. If I gave them pellet food, it would melt and then they couldn't retrieve it. So by only feeding them food that is cracked, it allows them to come back and retrieve it. They have plenty of grit. They have plenty of greenery to eat. What happens is I have drip lines everywhere, and you can see little depressions. See that depression? That's from their bills. Wherever I have water, they'll come through and they'll eat bugs, they'll eat grass, they'll stomp on the ground until I don't have a weed problem, and they also fertilize it as they poop. And so these trees are at a great advantage. Geese can function just fine without water when they're eating because they're grazers, they just eat grass. Ducks, if you want them to graze in a spot, you have to give them water on whatever you're wanting them to graze. So the drip system, I have a hose attachment to it so that as the drip system is going, their pond fills slowly and it cleans the water throughout the day. We have blue swifts, the big brown ones, and the black cayugas. We hatched those. So those are our new layers for the year. And then we have, I don't know what these others are. I know we have magpies. The spotted ones are magpies. And then we have the gray ones that are blue swifts. We have a couple Indian runners. But these ones with the, I think those are harlequins. I think those are Welsh harlequins, and they just don't, I think a lot of them are hens instead of drakes. I don't leave free food out for these guys all day. They get free food in the morning and just before bed. But the rest of the time they are out here in the drip line. And I don't mow up here, so you can see what a good job they do. The grass is going to be shortest where there's the most water. So this is the spot where the hose is. This is where the pond is, so that it has the shortest grass. But you come out here, and what we have found is that our ducks adore comfrey. You can see that they absolutely devastated all the comfrey that's usually so lush and beautiful. The nice thing is the comfrey can still blossom even with its bottom leaves eaten. Comfrey's high in protein, kind of like alfalfa. Morning, honey.
Hi.
You okay?
So you got, I'll have more nipples for the lamb's bottles.
Oh, that was dumb, huh?
Yeah. I told you last night. So am I weaning them?
You can see they ate all the bottom leaves of the comfrey, which is nice because I usually, this time of year, I cannot see my drip lines. I can see my drip lines just fine this year. They've kept it really nicely maintained. This turns into something of a little stream. It's a swale I experimented with when we first moved here. It's like a little ditch or stream, and so they can swim in it, eat in it. Hi guys. Finding what you want? Oh, they found worms. Oh, I don't know if you saw that duck right there. In these wet spots that are wet from yesterday, the worms are, they're earthworms. They'll just come up and, I wonder if I can get close enough that you can see it. So they're eating all the earthworms. It's a cycle because the ducks come in and poop, and it feeds the soil, which feeds the earthworms. But then from these wet spots, the ducks come back to these wet spots, and the worms have risen, and so now the ducks can eat the worms. Originally, the reason I had ducks was because in our deep mulch system in the backyard, we couldn't grow anything because the slugs were so bad in all that mulch. And we learned that if we put a slightly raised bed in, or even a really high raised bed in, the ducks would eat all the slugs, but they wouldn't eat the garden. So an even better solution is to put your ducks out in your orchard where you already have water because you're watering your fruit trees. What do you think, guys? And there they go. They're going to be going crazy for the earthworms and the beetles and everything else in here. And the nice thing is instead of just killing those things, they're actually feeding the soil so that we have a bumper crop of earthworms because the soil isn't so dead. This is where we grow our tea mint. And then we put willows in here as a windbreak, but also as a deterrent for deer. The deer hit the outside perimeter of the garden, and there's all this forage of fruit trees and willow trees and other kinds of really hardy trees like poplars and aspen and pea shrub, and they can browse on this. They kind of get their bellies full when they get in here. And so even though this fence is just to keep the ducks out, it would in no way, shape, or form keep a deer out. We don't have any predation on the garden from deer. We don't have any predation at all on the garden from the deer. You may wonder about the cats. They are trained not to eat baby birds. So we can have baby chicks down on the ground and they will not attack them. They know that they're allowed to eat baby birds if we hand them to them, which would be if we have a death, if we have a baby bird that dies of natural causes. We will feed it to the cats or put it in the compost for the cats to eat. But our cats will not eat a live bird that is free ranging. They know that they belong to us and that they're allowed to have them if we give them to them. For babies, what we'll do is we'll split the breast skin on something that dies and open it up to give it to the kittens because they have a hard time getting through the tough skin of our free-range birds. And they know anything in the compost is fair game. They can have anything that's in the compost. See that right there? It's a hole in the chain link that is a gate so that all the birds in the backyard can get back here to eat grass. The deep mulch keeps weeds down in the backyard and they need weeds, and so that gate is open. And I have a second pool that they can get into and more food here in the back for the chickens, the geese, the ducks, anybody that wants it. And once a day I dump this and I move it to a new spot. And that's what the non-GMO feed looks like. The protein comes from the Austrian peas for the most part. And you can see the ducks back there. Currently we have the geese locked out of their house. That is their house. We have them locked out because she went broody and she'd been broody for like 2 months. The eggs were not fertile. He'd been doing his best, but I think we need to double up and have 2 ganders, maybe 3 ganders next year if we want fertile eggs, because one just is not fertile. I use the water to water trees that don't get enough water. So if I know I have a spot where the drip line is not working as well as it could be, over there we still got standing water from yesterday, that's where I'll put the pond. So even if I didn't have a drip system, this is a great way to water trees, because when you dump it out every day, you dump it at the bottom of a fruit tree instead of just dumping it somewhere that's going to be a muddy mess. And it works really, really well. This area does not get watered as well because it's further away from the pump, but it still gets watered because every day we come out and dump the goose water, fill it back up, they splash and eat around it, and then I dump it the next day, and the trees get all that fertilizer, and the geese have the luxury of always having a good clean bath. We do have a rooster and 4 very free-range hens. And then we have some white leghorns that came late to the game and they haven't bonded and they kind of wander around at will. But these fat little mamas do very well for themselves. And he is a sex-link rooster. He hasn't ever been aggressive. We don't handle him We've had other roosters we got that we thought were prettier and better, but because he's not aggressive, he's the one we have. But he's very protective of them. He just isn't aggressive. What do we think of the mulberries this year?
Great.
This one is a red mulberry, or I don't remember if it's Russian.
It's Russian, I think.
Is it
was
Russian?
What you had said.
The other one is a white mulberry, an Alba, and it's sickly sweet. But these ones have very good flavor. They're like a kind of like a raspberry blueberry, more like a not blueberry, blackberry. They have flavor more like a blackberry.
Just very blueberry blackberry. It's black. It's a black and blue berry.
I know it has it doesn't have like that tart flavor of a raspberry.
Yeah.
But it has better flavor than the Alba. The Alba just tastes like syrup.
Yeah.
You can see all the different breeds get along most of the time, especially they get along well out here where there's more space. They have this whole space. The free range chickens go to the whole place. The geese generally stay pretty close. Okay, I wanted to kind of show a place that it's really obvious what's happened. So you see the trees are green, and then this is brown. We don't water anything that we don't get food off of. So what we do, that doesn't mean we don't get weeds. We do. We get weeds. We get alfalfa, we get other things that will grow in the spring. They get super tall. We cut them down, we use them as mulch. So you'll see instead of this being just dirt that turns into mud, what it is it's ground that's been mulched with weed cuttings. So we come out here and we cut it and we leave it where it is, which means we don't have exposed soil. Back there, we have hoary cress, which really is a tough weed. So when we cut it down, sometimes it remains green. Same thing with alfalfa. But it doesn't grow back again. You cut it once. As the weather starts to dry out in the summer, I cut it once. It stays down. The geese don't eat it because it's not next to water. It's not juicy and succulent. What they'll eat is what's directly around the water source, which is the trees. So you can see I've got mud there, but then I've got all these lovely weeds here that are keeping there from being erosion. And out here, we cut it and lay it, and because it's so dry in this spot, it never comes back until next year when we have spring rains. Beautiful birds. And again, you just saw they walked in that, they spilled a little bit of feed out the side, but that feed, because it's not in a crumble, it's not in a pellet form, it's retrievable. They can eat it. There's no waste. And there's quite a bit of feed out here. They eat a little bit of it and then they move on. This seems to be much more filling to them than like something that's corn and soy. This has a little bit of wheat in it. It has barley. It has Siberian peas. Or sorry, Austrian peas. And you can see how nice and clean the water has stayed. The ducks are a little bit afraid to get in there and bathe because if they make a lot of noise, it'll attract the geese, and the geese don't like the ducks in their water, so it stays really clean. I don't have it on. Okay, now I have it on.
Are you sure?
There.
Hi everybody, I exist. I existed just a minute ago too, but she didn't have the camera on.
So it doesn't
didn't
count.
Exist. Exactly. So we just started watering. Got 2 pigs.
Not doing an Airbnb this year.
Not doing an Airbnb. Either in the cabin or in the house. And, not that we didn't have wonderful experiences with all of our Airbnbers, but it's nice to have our alone time as well. To watch the pig eat the bucket.
Yeah, she wants her milk this morning. She's been getting a lot of milk lately from whey and cheese. And so Kai hasn't milked yet. What time are we? All right, you don't want to do this too soon. Their feathers need to be fully developed and they need to be feathered out. If you do it too soon, their beautiful little feathers still have blood in them and they'll bleed. So these guys are flying really well. We love to watch them fly, but the problem is that they can go over fences. You're okay. Be gentle, honey. Don't squeeze them too hard. They're going over fences up into grow beds, And the garden is up by the road, and we really want to keep them out of the road so that they don't die in the road. So we're very careful about how we do it. Okay, what we have here is we made sure not to cut up here where there would be any blood. We were really careful not to cut up here, and you could actually cut their whole wing off, the actual bone part of it, if you're cutting up here. So you slow down, make sure you're looking at it really good. You can use garden shears, you can use goat trimming, you can use heavy duty scissors. But that'll make it so that he can't fly. Other things that would be a problem is we have corn and sunflowers up in the front, and he would try to jump onto them and knock them down. So that's how we're protecting part of the garden. All right, there you go. Hey, bud. Guys. All right. With all baby birds, they are going to be able to eat their food better if it's damp. So these are their pellets with a little water in them so that they powder. And this works really well for all the animals that are kind of adolescent, is to put it in a container of water. Because if they try to eat the food dry, it sticks in their craw. They can't get it down. Even turkeys, if they're eating dry food, they need water the whole time. If they're eating grasshoppers, the grasshoppers come with their own moisture, and then there's the moisture from the plants that they're eating. And so that's why they don't have to have moist food if they're eating live food like grasshoppers. But any kind of pelleted food needs to be next to water, otherwise they can't. It'll dry out in their crop. It'll dry out in their crop. They won't be able to digest it right. So this is Paige teaching the turkeys how to catch grasshoppers. So she'll go catch a grasshopper, and then she'll call the turkeys. But for right now, the turkeys are pretty good. They'll find and eat flies or ticks or ants, but their favorite is grasshoppers. So you can see our leaves are pretty clear. We've got a little bit of predation here. You can see the holes in the beets, but that's why we have the turkeys up here, is they will go through and look for the grasshoppers. I don't have the turkeys out here in the garden until things are knee-high. The reason for that is they will eat and disturb really young vegetation, but this stuff is harvesting size. So the vines already have fruit on them. The beets are already beets at the bottom. Oh, do you see that one? Oh, yep. Is he gonna go for it? Did he find it? Once we get all of them up here, it's pretty fun to watch.
We're just barely getting started, so.
Yeah, we've got 7 little turkeys. We've only got 3 of them up here. You get it?
Yep.
We got a treat. You want me to show the camera? Hold, no, you gotta hold still. You hold still. You hold still, let me move the camera. And now they think they get picked up.
There you
Yummy. Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks a little dry. We haven't been able to afford more sawdust. Sawdust here, if you can't get it free from tree companies, it costs $200 for me to get a big load. And I decided not to spend the money after I used up the last bit. So we've been mulching with weeds. We pull the weeds and lay them down, or I come with in with the weed whacker.
Got another one.
Got another one?
Half the size.
But just because I've got weeds in the path doesn't mean I've got a lot of weeds in the beds themselves. It doesn't mean we can't harvest from them. It just means we're not stressed out about it being picture perfect. The way that we have success in the beginning is that with anything that has a lot of space between it, like potatoes that haven't come up yet, I plant Swiss chard. And the Swiss chard doesn't bolt very easily. So what we do is as the potatoes get bigger, we come through and we harvest all the Swiss chard and we feed it to the rabbits, or we eat it ourselves. And that way it keeps the weeds from coming back up. Taking cuttings from the Swiss chard feeds us and feeds the rabbits, but it also makes more space for the potatoes. So all these rows had Swiss chard in them, but most of it's come out now. Okay, I'm going to show this to you even though our babies are too big to really use it, but a seed tray, especially one of those sturdy ones that actually cost gentle, very gentle, especially the ones that cost a little bit of money, are perfect for tiny baby ducks or any other poultry so they can get enough water. Something like this also works, but you have to put a rock in it, otherwise it's too deep, and if it comes down halfway, you know, if they splash in it too much and most of the water comes out, they can't get out and they'll drown. But seed trays work the best. This is what it looks like once the ducks have been back here a lot. We do have some weeds, but they don't compete in any way with the fruit. And what we do is we come back and we put a little bit more sawdust down, and helps keep moisture into the plants. But this is what it looks like once the ducks have been around the trees for a while. You can see we don't have weed pressure around the plants themselves. I do wish we had more mulch back here, but anywhere that the ducks are super active, the mulch doesn't last very long. It just turns into dirt really fast. So these are volunteer raspberries that came from the original. I'm trying to get a raspberry patch going back here that's pretty big. And those are pie cherries. These are Nanking cherries, which are a fresh eating cherry. Those are Nanking cherries. That's a Nanking cherry. And we have quite a bit of variety right now for what the girls and I can come and just kind of harvest and eat. Those are gooseberries. They've already put their fruit on for the year. And Kaya likes to eat them green. This is a pear tree. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see pears, but these are mine. These are the pie cherries, a bush pie cherry, but they're just like a tree pie cherry. I do not care for them. They're so tart, but they're loaded. We don't have a lot of problems with birds. I don't know if it's because we have the ducks, or because we have the rabbits, or because we have the cats, but our neighbor never gets cherries or other types of fruit because the birds eat them very quickly. These are figs I need to get in the ground. I just never get around to it. And then this is Jerusalem artichokes and official comfrey, grapes, strawberries, garlic, oh, lemon balm, so much. How long have you been in there, little miss? We do not have a rooster for you. You cannot go broody. Ugh. Do you see her? Right there, that's our little dove, our original dove, white leghorn, and she wants to go broody in there, but we don't have a rooster, so none of them would hatch. Gotta get her out. All right, anytime you have permaculture, okay, go ahead. You have the possibility of little bandit chickens. So our little leghorn had a pretty good nest. Do you want help coming out? We have it protected like this until things are mature enough that the ducks and the other poultry can't hurt anything. And so this will probably be mature enough that we can let other animals in a couple of years. But until then we need to let seed stock get built up and soil moisture get built up and that kind of thing. So We'll see how these sunchokes do being held back. They were just starting to get to where nobody could move in that space, so I just put a rope around them made out of baling twine and then a little clip here just to hold them back. And we'll see how it goes. They get really tall. They get like 16 feet tall if you let them, if you take good care of them. So these guys are well on their way to that by the end of the summer. Okay, this is our egg overflow basket. And we save the clean eggs to put into a fridge in the basement if we get enough. This is our egg spiral, so you know chronologically which ones are oldest. The ones at the bottom are oldest, so we use these first. Pops out like this and rolls down. And that's how it works. So we've got some more. Now these eggs are from hens who were actually eating eggs. If you can give them a dark place to lay their eggs and lots of good food and water and lots of space, eventually they'll stop eating their eggs. All these white eggs are from hens that we got from other people that were eating their eggs, and now they don't eat their eggs anymore. So plenty of space, no competition for space, food and water. Happy hens don't eat their own eggs if you give them somewhere dark to lay. So, all right, this is our non-GMO feed. No soy, no corn. It works so well, but we save it for our breeders. We save it for our egg layers. Right now we have our meat birds, and this is just regular poultry scratch. Again, I don't give them the pellets that will fall apart. That's these over here. These guys, they melt in water. So I save these for our adolescent and baby animals. And then scratch grain, this one is corn, milo, and wheat. And the corn has been cracked, some of it, but it's big pieces, and it means that when you feed your ducks, they can get it all into their crop. It doesn't melt into the water. For juveniles and older, unless we're ready to butcher them, if they're just grass eaters, this is what I give them. And it works really well for them. When we get into the colder months, they eat a lot of crab apples, and then we'll move them to the non-GMO. So that's what we have found. The other thing we have found is that never raise baby animals for meat. As far as poultry, never raise poultry from babies. There's going to be so many people around you that will give you free animals for free. Animals they just don't want to take care of anymore. Get those ones, segregate them, quarantine them, give them good feed for a couple weeks, lots of water for a couple weeks, and then butcher them. It's very expensive to take poultry from baby to butcher weight. If you have a large number of them, you put a lot of feed into them, even though they're free range and grazing. I have one of these go through our ducks about every 4 to 5 days, and this is $13 a bag. If they weren't doing me the great favor of eating all the weeds around my fruit trees, fiscally, monetarily, it would not be smart to do. Babies just take too long to produce eggs or to produce meat. It just is not smart. So the way that I make them pay for themselves is I put this around the bottom of all my trees to entice them to do a better job of weeding. Now, I have not cut back these weeds because they are flowers. I want my bees and my little wasps to have flowers all year round, so I don't kill the bindweed that's out here in the driveway, and I don't kill any of the other flowering weeds because I'm not planting anything here. It doesn't hurt anything for these dry spots to put on flowers for bugs. They're not hurting anything. They're not in the garden. All right, so the other nice thing about ducks is it doesn't take much to keep them in. You don't have to have Fort Knox. All right, so, hi guys. Are you so happy in your little pond? On the days that we don't water in the drip lines, they get a pond that we fill from the house. Hi guys. All right, I'm gonna try and show you how I do this. So, there they are. If I have to feed them pelleted food, which I have for the last few days because I was out of my good food, we put them in these next to the pond. The other nice thing about this is it slows them down. They can get too much food in their crop to where they can't digest it, and they can get like bacteria and yeast and stuff growing in their crop if they have too much food in it at one given time as far as grain. So we're not watering anything today. Everything's happy. Hi, honey. So I'm going to the spot we watered last, and that's where I'm putting it. And you can see their little beak indentations. They look like little mouse holes, but they're not mouse holes. Those are duck beak holes. There's the cage and shade that we have for the turkeys if we're not up here. Hi guys. All right, I'm going to throw some down in here. This is the swale. I'm sorry the color on this camera is so bad and washed out. What I have in the swale is mint and comfrey. But the nice thing about doing this and spreading it out like this is that they always, in their little minds, they know that there should be food around these. So when they get hungry, instead of calling for you, they'll just go look for their grain a little bit harder. Because they're like, oh, there might be a little tiny bit here, I better go look for it. And so it teaches them self-reliance of, well, keep looking. There's always more feed somewhere. So I don't put it all in one place. I walk it along. And I put it where there's some moisture, so there might be some bugs there. And the more time that the ducks spend in these spots, the more bugs there will be, because they will fertilize those spots. You can see all the little impressions, the little dark spots. Those are little duck beaks. They got really cranky and hungry when I didn't have the scratch for them for a few days. They got really cranky. They were so loud because they'd eat all their food, and because it was in bowls, they didn't have to look for it, so they got too full at one time, and then the rest of the day they were super hungry and cranky, and it was a pain in the butt. So this works so much better to entice them to go in and hunt their own food. And this does not cause mice. Mice are not a problem. The ducks do clean it all up every day. We've got 55 birds up here, so they definitely clean it up. Again, I had to come in and cut down the really long grass because I didn't have enough birds here at the beginning of the season. If I'd had enough birds here at the beginning of the season, none of this long grass would be a problem. But I didn't get any of these birds until June, when the grass was already coming up really good. Those are the ones we hatched out in April, March or April. So they are our new layers. Aren't they beautiful? We have Cayuga and Khaki Campbell that are our new layers. Just and you can see they're eating what I left behind. And then if they need a drink to get it down, they go get a drink. If they drop any because they needed a drink, They go get a drink, they come back, they pick up what they dropped. It works so well. Then we got turklets. Did she leave you? Your food is at the other side. Hey Paige, do these turkeys remember where their food is?
Yeah, over in the corner.
But do they remember that?
Yeah.
Did they try to eat or drink out of it?
Yeah.
These are Siberian pea shrubs about to shatter their seeds out.
Ask Mom.
What, honey?
Oh, are always great. Sometimes great.
Yeah, do you need to find your food? Come find your food. Oh, you found a grasshopper? Oh, we almost got it. Where'd it go? It's over here somewhere. You almost got it. There's your food and water. Have some. Come on. Do we have another sheet?
No.
I would like to put a sheet over this corner for them. Go find your grasshoppers. There we go. Now we found the water. And the geese are very homebound. They want to stay at home. They're very comfortable up here. Even if we opened the gates, they would not go anywhere. They're very contented here, which is nice. So all you really have to give them is a pond to clean their feathers off in. Keeps pests and skin parasites down. And a little bit of a drip line. And they'll just be super happy to graze and protect the ducks. We don't put the geese in the duck closure because they'll pick on the ducks. But give them their space, and they're very not territorial against the people, but territorial about their space and their home and keeping it safe. Where are you going, guys? I don't know where they're headed. They must have a spot where they really like to eat their worms. Oh, they found something good. Oh, yep, they found a worm.
Everything, or should I do the backyard since it didn't get done yesterday?
I kind of wanted to water both of them myself, just because I wanted to check up and make sure that they were getting enough water, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you want to take and go let the chickens out and feed the goose?
Okay.
That would be probably one whole bucket of that in the goose food, since the ducks in the back like to eat the goose food. And make sure the little blue gate is open. All right, so in the garden this year, we weeded up until about June. So we weeded all of May, all of April. We put down lots of mulch. And the only place we weeded was in the rows. You can see in the rows themselves, there's not weeds. In the pathways, there's weeds. But we are still weeding inside the rows if we can reach into the rows. So we have green beans, corn, 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 corn. And then we thought we were planting watermelons, but we weren't, because these are not watermelons. These are squash, which is unfortunate. I did not intend to plant squash in our main garden this year because we have a skin allergy to it. It's okay for it to grow in the garden. We just can't have to maintain it at all because we can't touch it. These are tomatoes with zucchini in between the tomatoes. I thought that more of these tomatoes would die because they were looking super rough, so I planted zucchini in case we had a lot of death in the tomatoes. Turns out everybody's fine. Sunflowers, the kids keep walking through the rows instead of around the rows, so we've got some falling. Second batch of peas, and I planted corn here super late because I just wanted to see what would happen. You can see the change. These ones got mulched late and lightly, and these rows got mulched heavily and constantly. You can see the difference in the rows. Potatoes, 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 beets, peas, potatoes. And we mulched in some places with grass clippings and some places with sawdust.